Hi, welcome back, everyone, to Kill Meat and Friends. We go overseas right now to talk to Tommy Robinson. When I saw him interviewed and heard about his organization, I just had to talk to him. He is co-founder and spokesperson and leader of the English Defense League, the EDL. And now, Tommy, why did you form the English Defense League?
We formed 4 years ago due to an inability by our government or our police forces to tackle radical Islam. There's a two-tier policing system, a two-tier funding system, which is developed in our country, where Islam is treated as master race. And it was that lack of inability that we thought we had to do something, and that was to take to the streets. We've had no other option. So we started taking to the streets, and we've developed, and we've gone on from there over the past 4 years to become a large organisation to combat Islam, Sharia law, Islamist extremism, Muslim paedophile gangs, which we've got all over our news again today. The government have just accepted that there's actually been a conspiracy of silence between our religious leaders, our political leaders, and our police leaders to facilitate paedophile gangs operating, but due to political correctness. They were scared to arrest them because they were Pakistani Muslim men, and the victims were all young white English girls. And this is like an epidemic across our country, but obviously that's where we are now.
Tommy, what did the beheading of that innocent soldier who happened to be a hero at war but thought he was safe at home, what did that do for your organization?
We see for our organisation, basically everything we've been saying and warning about. We made a video in 2010 with Lee Rigby's killer on the video, warning about Islamic extremism in our country that's not being tackled. And basically a lot of people, then it gave us a platform where people could hear and listen to what we're saying. And we've had media against us. We're up against the best funded fascist ideology in the world. And they've been scaremongering and giving us a bad reputation for 4 years. And once we've given that platform so people could hear what we're saying, everyone's like, they're right. Everything they're saying is right. And it's common sense. We're not asking for all Muslims to leave this country. We're just saying the ideology needs to reform. We want peace, but we haven't got peace. And it needs to be tackled. You're not going to tackle it by appeasing it or pretending the problem's not there or brushing it under the carpet like they've been doing in this country for 15 to 20 years through fear of being branded a racist. But obviously what happened to Lee Rigby touched this entire country because we feel so passionately for our troops. And more so when you actually think that his family had that, the weight lifted off their shoulders once they know he's home from war zone. And to die then in that horrific way, and if our government accepted where he was butchered and murdered, he wasn't just killed. That's when they say killed. He was only identifiable by his dental records. So when you think about what they've done to him in the streets of London, and where it happened was 7 miles away from one of the biggest Sharia zones in Europe. Now our government need to accept that this is a war against militant Islam. Today, I don't know if you've seen on your news over there, there's just been 6 Muslims. I've just been to the court case. 6 Muslims have just been sentenced who were on their way to one of our demonstrations. They were caught with 2 shotguns, an IED, and an arsenal of machetes and knives. So what they done to leave?
They were going to come and try to kill you.
They were coming to kill us. They arrived late. They were there an hour and a half late after the demonstration. Now, they've just been sentenced to 19 years, where they will go into a prison system where they will radicalise more people. Nothing is being done within the prison system to tackle the radicalisation, which is spreading throughout the jails. We have 800 radicalised converts, many of them, English people and British people, coming out of prison every year, who we're then having to monitor 24 hours a day, waiting for them to do something. Now, these 6 people, what happened to Lee Rigby, they were going to do on a massive scale. They were going to drive in, and these are things which we've been trying to warn about and say it's out of control in this country. And I know I'm talking to listeners in America. It's 15 years behind. What's happening here is going to happen there. It's the same Islam, and don't get me wrong, there are great Muslims. I'm brought up in one.
Tommy, you're right, because you saw what happened in Boston. I mean, what are those guys? What have we done wrong for them? We gave these guys a great life. We're paying for their college. I mean, we gave this guy a scholarship and went to an elite high school, and they're mad at us for finding ways to build bombs and kill people who are running marathons?
This is the problem. Do you know what the problem is? I was doing an interview only 2 weeks ago with someone, and I spoke about the Boston bombing, and this is with a woman from media in Britain, and she said that was domestic. And in this country, BBC News and Sky News didn't mention once the word jihad or Muslim or Islam. So when they're reporting on what's happened in Boston, many people in this country are fooled to not actually knowing the true reasons why they carried out that attack. And that's what we're up against, is a media machine, which is actually changing the reasons as to why things are done and trying to... we were told for days, as probably people were over there, they wanted it to be the far right. They wanted it to be someone else. And it's ludicrous and it's mad. And that's the same with this. No one dare... In this country, people dare even mention the word Muslim or Islam. And that's why when we've come along, we're just saying it how it is, a spade. This killing, when they've beheaded Lee Rigby, they've done it, and they told us, not what we're saying, they told us, we done it in the name of Islam because we are instructed by this verse in the Quran to kill you. And then the same with these people who were targeting the English Defence League. They said they were instructed...
So, Tommy, are you armed when you go to these events? Do you have any security?
No, we have no security. This is the massive problem I have, is my local police force told me that I have to leave my hometown, take my family with me, because they cannot protect me. That was their advice to me. And they sat my wife down when she was pregnant, and they gave her an Osman warning. In this country, we have Osman warnings. They're not handed out easily. They're handed out when there is a specific threat against your life. I have to wear a bulletproof vest. We're not armed at all. I'm not armed even at my home. I've had them come to my house. I've had my car blown up. They've done everything. And we're trying to fight this war with shirt buttons. We've got no funding. This is the problem we have. And the police are on their side due to political
But Tommy, by the way, I'm talking to Tommy Robinson, co-founder and spokesperson for the English Defence League, a league that is defending Britain's right to exist against Muslim extremists who want to slowly but surely take over the West, including Britain. But Tommy, what I don't understand is when the cops get you alone, when the policemen get you alone, they know that you're doing the right thing, right?
They admit. Yeah, they shake our hands. All of them. This is not the police who are on the street level. What this comes down for is political policing. It's coming from the top, orchestrated. Do you know what I mean? So their hands are tied due to political correctness, and many of the times due to the fear of what the Muslim community will do, the backlash. So that's why we have iron fist for our community, kid gloves for theirs. Now, when you actually sit, which we've done, sit and work out the demographics, look at how our country's changed. I think every 10 years the Islamic community doubles. So in the 60s, they had 180,000, 70s, 360, 80s, 700,000, 90s, 1.4, 2003 million, year 2000, 3 million, 2010, 6 million. What's next, 12 million, 24 million? Where does it stop? How do we fit? But
Tommy, am I right that they have no interest in the ones that are going to be a problem have no interest in blending in and being part of Britain? They want to take over.
No integration. And what we have is Saudi Arabia funding. There are some sects, Ahmadiyya sects, that are great, yeah, but the majority of the Saudi-funded sects, Wahhabi, Salafi, the ones that are spreading like a wildfire across our country, complete non-integration with Christians and Jews. And it's due to the ideological teachings. And nothing's being tackled. And that's what we're saying. As the view that you have of this green and pleasant land, which is a beautiful country, one for hundreds of thousands of years of history, there's a black poker Sharia flying over it at present, and it's the future's not bright at all. And that's what because we're talking to Americans as well. In the World War, we need America's help. Now, in this country, we need America's support because we need to take our country back.
Yeah, but we have an administration now that does not want to even say Islamic extremist.
I know. That's the problem you've got in the White House.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, and this is a worldwide struggle. When you look across Europe, certain countries, when you actually look into what's happening in these countries and do the demographics and predict the next 30 to 40 years, what is it going to be like? In my hometown of Luton, like 30 years ago, there was one mosque and 3,000 or 4,000 Muslims. Now, if you'd have told the people of Luton in 30 years' time there'll be 26 mosques, 30,000 Muslims, they'll be changing the name of Christmas to Winter Festival, every restaurant in the entire town will be halal meat, they'll be banning the emblem of St George on St George's Day. Now, 30 years ago, everyone would have said, don't be stupid, you're crazy. But within 30 years, that's happened. So when we're saying in 30 years' time, they will be forcefully putting us under Sharia. There will be a violent struggle across this country, complete civil breakdown and disorder. And when we look at what our forefathers done, they run out, 14-year-olds were pretending they were older, they went out and they died to protect and hand down a safe and prosperous Britain. Now, we have a duty, as fathers and as British men, we have a duty of doing the same. Now, our politicians are allowing this to happen, and that's why we've took to the streets. And as I said, a smear campaign, a lot of people we've been called thugs or hooligans. Look, realistically, it's only going to be it's never going to be doctors and nurses that are taking to the street to tackle the militant jihadists. This is not Mickey Mouse we're up against. This is militant Islam. So the kind of people we have are lads that are willing not to back down. We will not be beaten into submission or silence. At the same time, everything that they can do to break us and smash us, they're doing that. 3 years ago, they come in my house, the British police. They took my assets. They froze my bank accounts. Now, you'd think this was China or Russia we're talking about. They froze my assets, my bank accounts. They took all my property. They even took my wedding ring and my watch. And they've had all my assets for 3 years for suspicion of tax irregularities dating back 8 years. I've been reading, actually, about things with the IRS in America. The Tea Party are saying similar things are happening. But when the story's told, you would not believe it, what they've done. And it's unbelievable.
Tommy, do you have a lawyer that's helping fight for you? I mean, are you alone?
Trying to get a lawyer. I don't know if you know. I come to America. I come to New York on September the 11th, yeah? Now, I've been to America 3 years in a row. And then, not this year, the year before, I tried to get in at America at JFK Airport, and I was stopped. And they basically told me that the British authorities had told them to send me back, yeah? So when it comes to going this time, on September 11th, didn't want the British police to know I was going. So I booked a flight in a separate name, my friend's name. Yeah? And the reason why I'd done this, now I knew the consequences of doing this at the time. What we have is not something we're reading in a book or reading in a magazine. What we have is a life experience of what it's like growing up in a town where you become a minority to Islam. Now, the message that we brought to New York, it was at Pamela Geller's event, I believe is so important for Americans to hear. So, as a warning to the people of the country, listen to what's going to happen. I only wish that someone come to my country 20 years ago and woke us up so that we could put things in place to stop this and make sure it didn't spread the way like it's a cancer infecting our country. So I come there and I use someone else's passport. And I got in, surprisingly enough, on September 10th. I got through all American security systems. Yes, I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I wanted to come for nothing else. I only stayed for 1 day to give a speech in New York. I come home. I was sentenced to 10 months in prison over here for that.
You spent 10 months in prison?
I spent 10 months in prison. I was only released from prison 12 weeks ago for that. I was held by police. 6 weeks later, they come and got me in Britain, and then they put me in remand. I was put on solitary confinement. I wasn't allowed to go to church. I wasn't allowed to leave my cell. Everything is done to break us. Yeah? And everything they've done, I knew when they were doing it at the time. And it was for using a false documentation to enter into America. Now, I'd done that, and I don't regret doing it at all. And although I'd love to be able to come back to America, I would love it more than anything, because I love the country, I love the people. I can't now because of this. But I'd done it, and I knew I was doing it at the time, and I'd done it to give a message to Americans and say, listen, you do not understand what's on its way, okay? I've got 3 beautiful children, and I'm terrified for them in this country. I'm terrified for the route our country's going down, and the fact that we have complete spineless politicians and we have no strong leadership. That I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel in what's happening in our country, other than the fact now people are waking up, and the true British people are joining the English.
I mean, what else do they need to see, Tommy? I mean, they see the guy, they see a soldier beheaded in the streets in the middle of the day for no reason except for he's British and a soldier, and these 2 guys proud of it and wanting the cops to come arrest them so they could shoot the cops who come arrest them. They want to be killed in the street, but now they're going to be jailed.
They wanted to be killed so they could be martyred. That's when you have to think about their way of thinking, is that's what they wanted, because they wanted to be martyred, to go up to heaven, to get their virgins, etc., etc. But that's the tip of the iceberg. You see the violent jihadists. Now, they are a real problem, and they do wake people up with what they're doing. But this silent jihad that's going on, this silent takeover and planning to take over and implement Sharia, they're the ones I'm terrified of, because they're actually sitting around tables with government. They're actually in positions of power. They've infiltrated major positions across the whole entire government. And that's it. And I say, don't listen to what we're saying. Listen to what they're saying. They're openly telling us they want to take over the country. They're openly committing treason. They're openly Islamifying areas. And it has to end. And that's what we're saying. It's like, you don't keep adding to the problem.
Well, well, Tommy, we got your back, and we'll definitely look to keep in touch. And I really think it's it's great what you're doing.
I'll just say, any of your listeners, we've got it's www.englishdefenceleague.org. Follow me on Twitter, EDLT Robinson. Follow the English Defence League on Facebook. Give us your support and help. We need it, and God bless.
All right.
God bless America.
Thank you very much. EnglishDefenseLeague.org, and I'll tweet that out. Tommy Robinson.